Hello BookTube, I just reached 800 videos, and what better way to celebrate than with an original tag video, an original Q&A video. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I have 15 questions that were surprisingly a pain in the rear end to come up with. Some of them are inspired by other book tags and other events. But yeah, I hope you enjoy them. And next week I'll have another original tag video, the other one that I've been thinking of doing, which, well, I imagine it to be one thing. I think you can actually do it as another, but I'll talk about that when I upload that video. But for now, here are 15 random questions. Let's get going. So question number 1, and this question was inspired by the I'm Mental tag from Big Hard Books and Classics. What is a book you don't want to admit you hate or dislike? For me, and I'm going to be losing my fantasy fandom badge for this, but I don't like The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the seminal work of fantasy fiction. It's the first epic fantasy, or at least as fantasy as a modern literary genre. It is the story of the One Ring, the object of magical power created by the Dark Lord Sauron that came into the possession of a hobbit named Bilbo. Bilbo passes this ring on to his heir Frodo, and Frodo and a number of hobbits must go on a quest to destroy this ring. They are joined by a wizard named Gandalf, several humans, a dwarf, and an elf. And through a number of adventures, eventually Frodo does contribute to the destruction of the ring. I first read The Lord of the Rings in 2007, shortly after I got, would have been 2007, so it would have been a few months since I got back from San Francisco. I'd originally picked up this particular book because I was going to take a class on The Lord of the Rings. But I actually dropped that class before the semester even started. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I finally got around to reading The Lord of the Rings in 2007. And it was okay, but I didn't love it, and I didn't particularly like it either. But I was going along until The Return of the King, where I kind of started to lose interest in the book. And every time I've come back to The Lord of the Rings, and I think I've come back to it twice, I've never been into it. So I don't like The Lord of the Rings. I'm a bad fantasy fan, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, question number 2. Are there authors whose work you haven't gotten on with that you want to revisit? So this question was inspired by a comment I made in a tag video I did last week, where it was the remix of Jim's alphabet tag, Jim of Jim's books, reading and stuff. And I mentioned that I'd never read Hardy or Highsmith, and I read one short story by Hemingway for American Lit 2, and I didn't like it. And I think I basically wrote him off with that one short story. And now I'm thinking maybe I should have another look at Hemingway. So I'm thinking I'm going to have at least sometime this year, another look at Hemingway. I don't know if it'll be a short fiction or a novel. And I also would like to revisit Flannery O'Connor's work. She's another writer who I don't particularly get on with that I would like to revisit at some point this year. Maybe for either Reading America or Back to School, depending how I do that. But anyway. Question number 3. Is your TBR outlined or pantsed? So this question draws on sort of creative writing. Do you outline your stories or do you pants them? So in this case, do you plan out your TBR in detail, or do you basically have your TBR on a whim or by mood? And my TBR is usually outlined, although I do at points get a strong desire or a mood for a particular book, and then I will just pick that book out, whether it's in the plan or not. Because sometimes, as much as I love to outline and plan things, they don't always go my way. As will become clear this Friday when I do weekly reads. I had a disastrous reading weekend. Oh, was it bad? Anyway, question number 4. What is your favorite BookTube reading event? For me, that is Nonfiction November, although given how monstrously bad my reading weekend was, perhaps my enthusiasm for Nonfiction November should be tamped down. Also, the fact that last Nonfiction November was fairly brutal too. So, anyway, I sometimes don't quite get on with reading events as I would like. I don't know why, but anyway. Question number 5. How many works does it take to decide if you like or dislike an author's work? While I have written off Ernest Hemingway off of one short story, I think it really should be a bit more, with liking an author's work probably requiring less works, having read less works, than deciding if you don't particularly care for an author. But it's also individual. So for me, I'd go with the two both ways, both like and dislike. Although if you strongly love or strongly hate a single work, then that would count too. See, where am I? Oh, yes, okay. I really should have done this one as question number 7, but this is question number 6. Which of these 7 deadly sins do you experience the most? That would be wrath. I have a bit of a temper, and particularly when it comes to accidents. I do sort of briefly get quite angry at those moments. Question number 7. Which of the Olympian gods is your favorite? And if you don't particularly like the 12 Olympians, you could just pass on the question or choose a different god or gods. For me, my favorite Olympians, and I have 2. They're Athena and Apollo. Athena because she is one of the strongest gods. She's the goddess of war and wisdom, and just an all-around amazing figure. And Apollo is just a very interesting god, and I actually much prefer the earlier Apollo, the more destructive Apollo, rather than the more civilizational Apollo. I prefer the Apollo of the Iliad than I do, say, the god of art and civilization. Question number 8. What is your go-to special event meal? Whether you make it yourself or you order it in. And if you don't particularly cook or care to cook and you prefer to dine out or order in food. For me, I kind of made this question up because we're coming up on the Super Bowl, and for the Super Bowl, it is traditional in my family that we make a cheese dip. It's basically uh, a cheese dip that you could do a whole meal out of. It includes the block processed cheese with breakfast sausage, chili, and rotel tomatoes. And it's quite good and it's quite filling. Other special event meals I make or dishes, a 4-layer delight is requirement for like Thanksgiving and Christmas and family holidays. Um, it's basically a trifle with a pecan crust layer and then cream cheese, a pudding layer, and topped with whipped cream. Also, banana pudding makes an appearance quite often. Turkey, brisket, um, green bean casserole. So yeah, although normally I'm not quite allowed because normally for special events, since we normally go over to my brother's, he normally does the cooking. So I don't really do as much cooking as I would like to for special events. But anyway, moving on to question number 9. Do you attend local celebrations, fairs, festivals, markets, etc.? No. When I was younger, I would go to the local Founders Day, the town Founders Day, which was quite fun. But I grew out of it, and I do have quite complicated relationship with my hometown. Um, I don't particularly like it, to be honest. So I don't really go to them nowadays. I would like, I mean, there are times when I would like to, but with the pandemic, I'll pass. Question number 10. Do you prefer the city, suburbs, small towns, or the country? The city. I much prefer the city. There's so much more to do and cultural events that really suit me a lot more than either suburbs, small towns, or the country. Although they all have their attractions, but the city for me is the one I would prefer. Question number 11. Are there any BookTube videos you have a hard time making? Discussion videos. I try to make discussion videos all the time, whether it's to piggyback off of something another booktuber has said or something that's bugging me or that I want to work through, and they never work out. They just never work out. And I usually end up trashing them. That's why, while I would like to film a video every day, so Monday through Friday. And usually, if I'm absent a day, it's because I tried to film a discussion video and it did not pan out, so I scrapped it. Question number 12. Are you interested in local history? By this, I mean, and so this question was one of the ones that I borrowed from another tag video I was thinking of creating, and that would focus on history. So in this instance, I meant, and I'm sort of looking into like not only local history in the sense of your hometown or home county or whatever division is between like city and state or province. And it could even go up into like the state or provincial or prefecture or whatever you have it's called. I Again, I have mixed feelings. Locally, I don't have that interest in my hometown's history or the county's history. And when it comes to state history, I do have some interest, but it comes and goes. But it's also not as passionate when I do get the desire to engage in Texas history as my interest is in the Bronze Age or other periods of history. Question number 13. What subjects were your favorite in school? So my favorite subject was history. I also really enjoyed English and home ec. Question 14. If you could go back in time and change one thing in your life, what would it be? So originally, my answer to this question was going to be changing my major from English Lit to history. But now that I think about it, and again, coming off of a disastrous reading weekend, oh, was it disastrous? I'm going to change that to I would have, I think, tried to encourage greater interest and appreciation and desire to be more physically active, to exercise more, and perhaps to be a bit more extroverted. I am rather introverted, and it sometimes does not necessarily the healthiest mental space for me a lot of the time. Question number 15. Yes, this is 15. Are there any childhood entertainments that you still engage in? So when I was a child, I played with toys, G.I. Joe, mostly Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers. I was a kid of the late 80s, early 90s. Of course, when a lot of those toys started to go away. But I also played with video games, and that was really the inspiration for this question. I was originally going to ask if you played video games, but I kind of decided to change it. Because lately, even though I don't play with toys anymore and I have really no interest in collecting toys anymore, I am starting to develop a desire to start gaming again, to play video games. I have this really strong urge and desire to play Super Mario, and I don't know why. I do have a PS4 that's currently languishing on top of one of my bookcases because I hadn't actually played it in about a year and a half now. And I'm kind of thinking about starting back up again. And I don't quite know why. So do you have this feeling? I mean, of course, also comics, although I don't really read American superhero comics like I did as a kid. My interest in that area is mostly now manga. So again, if are there any childhood entertainments that you still engage in or are interested in, like the history of, or what have you? Yeah, could be interesting. And finally, tagging people. So I'm going to tag Steve Donahue, Micah Cummins, Bill Rutenberg, Bookends and Books, Fiber Artsy, and Gina Stanier. So if you'd love to do this tag, and of course everybody else, if you like this tag and would like to do it, consider yourselves tagged. And new BookTube, I will be back tomorrow with part 7 of my 2023 library tour, and of course what other tag videos are up on Tag Tuesday, and I will actually be working on another tag for next week because I think everybody can do it. Even though I originally thought that maybe only fantasy fans could do it, I think there is a possibility that you don't necessarily have to be a fantasy fan to do it. So let's see. Anyway, BookTube, that's all I got for this evening. So I'll be back tomorrow. So until then, thank you. Have a great evening and stay safe.